used to measure those things a bit. And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know what Chris Sale can bring. I was personally high on Schwallenbach. Smith-Shawver, their other starter, looks okay to kind of bad. They need to I don't want to say tread water, so I think that puts it in a bad light, but that's what they ultimately need to do. They need to tread water until Strider gets back, until Acuna gets back, and maybe it's just part of the team morale mentality that we're not at full strength, need to kick things into gear once those guys get here.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
These guys are barreling everything right now that are hitting well. Pitching is usually ahead of hitting this time of year, but torpedo bats is what we're reading about, Tom, and I think it's hilarious.
Will the pitching be out in front, or are the bats actually this strong? So it's going to develop over the course of weeks. And again, if all teams have the ability to do so, be creative with it and get out there and use it.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the move between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fight.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. As we get ready for the weekend and wrap up the week, more coverage of the Masters is round 2 underway at Augusta. We'll take a look at the live leaderboard with a strong start for Justin Rose and others. We'll tell you more about that. Geoff Fienberg is going to join us a little bit later in the show. We'll go over who he likes to take round 2 and inevitably make the cut and get into the weekend at Augusta. Also, the NBA is going through the final stages of the regular season. A couple of games to go for everyone as we wrap it up on Sunday. Playing games next week, Gilbert McGregor will join us courtesy of Sporting News as well. Also, Sam McQuillan with Legal Sports Report and the latest on sports betting around the country. All right, so let's get started here. Masters underway, couple hours into round 2. Here's a look at the live leaderboard. As we speak right now, Bryson DeChambeau is the name to watch. He seems to be on the move, and he's currently playing right now, as well as Corey Connors. Yesterday, Justin Rose fired a 7-under. He is 6-1 to win right now over on the FanDuel Sportsbook. But look who's right behind him, and Scotty Scheffler, Ludwig Oberg, also playing very well on the course as well today. Tyrrell Hatton, Sungjae Im, Daniel Berger, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Victor Hovland. Those are among some of the leaders. Scheffler will tee off later this afternoon, as well as some of the other leaders as well. Naturally, as we go throughout the show, we'll have live updates, and we'll see if Justin Rose can double down on that performance that he had yesterday. All right, let's get to the latest in Major League Baseball as it pertains to some sports fantasy contests. The Atlanta Braves are partnering up with Prize Picks. The Atlanta headquartered daily fantasy sports company has a new contract with them, and the operator will be featured throughout the Braves' Truist Park and some LED lights as well. Let's also not forget where the All-Star Game and Home Run Derby are this year. So good timing here for Atlanta and also for Prize Picks as well. The Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Memphis Grizzlies. They put up 144 yesterday on Memphis, and they beat them by 19, 144-25. The big story was Anthony Edwards. He had 44 points. But the key was a 52-point third quarter for Memphis, in which he had 18 points. Julius Randle also had 31 points and 10 rebounds for the red-hot Minnesota Timberwolves. Maybe they are one of those teams to watch as the NBA playoffs gets ready to begin next week. Let's hear from their head coach, Chris Finch, who said that Edwards always steps up in the big moments.
And I mean, we've talked about it a little before, but do you just sense that, does Ant have a sense of the moment here? Like, I mean, to come out the way that he did, I mean, we've seen it many times, just coming off of Tuesday and trying to get back into it.
No doubt. No doubt about it. He's had that since, he got here. Even as a rookie, we didn't play in a lot of big and meaningful games, certainly that year, that half season together. But once the next season rolled around, he has a sense of the moment in the game. Sometimes he wants it too bad, but that's a good thing. And tonight he was phenomenal. So,
Coach was saying that ever since you were a rookie, he sensed that you have a sense of the moment. Like when there's a big game, you're ready for it. Could you feel that tonight?
Yeah.
Was in it?
Yeah, Mike knew what was up. Ask Mike, he knew. Told Mike I was on tonight.
Okay. What puts you in that mindset?
Like Finchie said, I just got the sense. I mean, every game that we play, 82 games is a big game. But tonight was like Mike Wright must win, pretty much. So I just had that sense, man. And when I get that sense, it's ugly for anybody. Yeah.
As the NBA playoffs gets ready to begin next week, a lot of teams are sitting players. Last night, that included the Cleveland Cavaliers. They've had a great regular season, but of course have bigger aspirations coming up this month. But the Indiana Pacers did end up getting a win with Cleveland starting their guys, 114-112. Tyrese Halliburton had 23 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds. And for the first time in I don't know how long, the Indiana Pacers have clinched a home playoff series in the first round of the Eastern Conference NBA playoffs. So really nice job by them. And a season to remember for Indiana, says Tyrese Halliburton.
I mean, I think it's just it's special for us knowing what we've been through to get here and how this started. And I think we're a game away from having a 50-win season, and that's not. I think that could be something because time is moving so fast that you just let happen and you move forward. But I think it's a special year, especially the way we started, 10 and 15, 10 and 16, whatever the case may be. Just really proud of our group and, how we've been able to change the direction of our season. And, it's a big deal for us. So we don't take that lightly, understanding we've never been in the situation to have home court going into the playoffs, and that's a whole different type of responsibility that we have to be prepared for. But definitely special for us no matter how you get it. You'll take it.
Meanwhile, the Detroit Pistons taking the opposite approach as they get toward the NBA playoffs. And of course, they'll be in this year. Great season for them. And Coach of the Year candidate J.B. Bickerstaff. Cade Cunningham did play yesterday for Detroit. He had 36 points and 8 assists in the win over the Knicks. The one final last night that you look at and wonder what the NBA playoffs could be if these two teams face off against each other, especially with Detroit winning this game, 115-106, although the Knicks did sit a couple of players as well. J.B. Bickerstaff talked about if there is a potential matchup coming between these two teams next week.
Coach, you get an opportunity to learn something about your team every night. For the way this game played out, in the atmosphere in which it was, for you guys to outscore them 30-21 in that final quarter, how impressed were you with what you saw?
I mean, that's Pistons basketball, right? I thought, the past couple games in the first half, we've been in a position where we've been just trying to trade punches. But that's not who we are. That's not what makes us unique. The second half, we played our style, right, and brought the fight to our type of fight. Defensively is where it always starts with us. If we think we're going to go out there and just trade baskets, that's not who we are. Everything we do starts with our willingness to compete on the defensive end of the floor, and that's what makes us unique, right? We're not like your typical NBA team. That's not who we are, and we can't afford to play that way. But if it comes down to grit and toughness and competition, I like our chances.
Right now, the Pistons, one of those teams to watch in the Eastern Conference. As far as the Milwaukee Bucks are concerned, got to keep an eye on them. They got Giannis. He had 28 points last night, and the Bucks have now won 6 straight games, 136-111 over the Detroit Pistons. Meanwhile, Zachary Rissache scored 38 points last night, career high. The Hawks beat the Nets 133-109. He was the number 1 pick in the draft and seems to be coming on strong. 15 of 20 from the field. Trae Young at 24 points as well. Here's Young on the outcome.
Yeah, we know what we have to do. We know the position we're in, so we know we got to just take care of business. I mean, obviously, I think if we win the next game, we're in the A spot. So we have to win the next game. So that's all it is, and we're just taking it one game at a time, and then we'll see where we end.
Trey, you mentioned the game tomorrow, but how can you kind of soak in this win and kind of enjoy it a little bit before that quick turnaround with tomorrow's game?
Yeah, I don't even think we need to enjoy it, to be honest with you. I don't even think. I mean, obviously every win you wanna be happy about it and things like that, but it's a different time of season. We gotta take care of what we need to take care of and then move on to the next one, and not try to dwindle on this one too long and just focus on the next game now.
Over in Major League Baseball, got to keep building stadiums with roofs. I think that's the bottom line here, because a 2-hour, 45-minute rain delay last night ended in Marcell Ozuna's walk-off home run, ended at 1 o'clock in the morning. The Braves end up winning 4-2. Mike Trout's been hot. He hit 2 home runs. The Angels seem to be hitting the ball a lot better this year. Joe Adell also homered 2 times. Angels beat the Rays 11-1. Boston beats Toronto 4-3, and they avoid a 4-game sweep. In terms of the American League Central, 2 teams squaring off. Royals and Twins. Bobby Witt Jr. hits a tie-breaking sac fly. The Royals beat the Twins 2. Also, Brenton Doyle tied a career high with 5 runs driven in. Rockies beat the Brewers 7-2, and Cleveland wins 6-1 against the Chicago White Sox. And wouldn't you know, we're right back to where we were a year ago. Chicago, my friends, the White Sox have lost 8 games in a row, 2 years in a row. All right, Gilbert McGregor will have some better news for us as we preview some of the games in the NBA. Don't go away.
We all know nothing beats the energy of playing live roulette in a casino. But playing roulette online sure does have its perks. At the casino, you'll average 40 to 50 spins per hour. But online, you're looking at 100 to 150. The more spins, the more chance of wins. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The NBA playoffs begin next week. Let me say that again. The NBA playoffs begin next week. It can't come any sooner. I can't even keep up with who's playing in these games or not. Gilbert McGregor is here to help us sort out. Gilbert, people who are betting on, I mean, this feels like spring training baseball right now, betting on the NBA. I mean, these games, basically, I see the point spreads, and then all of a sudden, get like 10 minutes before the game, the lines are moving like 5-6 points. All these guys are sitting out. I know there are some teams playing for something this weekend, but my gosh, I think my focus is going to be on the Masters until we get to the playoffs next week. I can't figure out who's playing in these games or not.
Yeah, but with there being 30 games between today and Sunday, it is hard to keep up with everything. I think the big thing is to keep an eye on which teams have something to play for, and that's who you know to kind of side with, and maybe the players to look at. But it is hard to decipher, and you have to take a long, hard look at the standings to figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. So the Pistons beat the Knicks last night. I know New York's had a couple of players. Cleveland just said, to heck with it. We'll take our L if we have to. They almost beat Indiana without him. Milwaukee's playing great basketball going into their playoff matchup, maybe one of the hotter teams in the East. And then the Hawks, they are basically the playing game savants. They've been playing in these playing games, it feels like, every single year. They're going to be headed to that one as well. So, I think probably I would say maybe with Risache playing well, I mean, maybe there's like a danger zone here for some of these teams in the East, because Atlanta's got the experience of doing it. And by the way, Atlanta seems, I don't know, am I right by this? It seems they always win one of the play-in games, but then they lose the other one.
Yeah, they are typically pretty successful in the play-in tournament. I think last year was the first time they ever lost in one. So I want to say they're 3-1 or 4-1 in play-in tournament games. So I think the big thing for teams like that in the play-in tournament range is momentum, because they are going to play again next week if it's Tuesday or Wednesday. So closing the season with a few wins and having some momentum going into the play-in tournament helps a lot. And for some of these teams like Atlanta, Miami, Chicago, there's a big difference in finishing 8th or 9th, because you only have to win one game. And if you lose that first game, you get a home game. So I think we will see teams like that. And in the Western Conference as well, when you talk about Dallas and those teams, I know we'll talk about the West in a second, but these play-in tournament teams, even though they can't get into the top 6, they still want to have that incentive to only have to win one game to get in the playoffs. When you have a guy like Trae Young, he has a tendency to be able to play in those one-off situations.
Yeah, and in the East, with the games beginning next week in the play-in, I know that things are still fluid here, but I believe we're locked into the teams with Orlando, Atlanta, Chicago, and Miami. I see, Gilbert, the Miami reporters are talking about how they could still move up to 9, but they can't get a home game. And so, it seems to me over the course of the season that those first two teams, the Magic, have played better basketball than the others, and Atlanta has the equalizer in Trae Young. I want to see the Heat get past this, but I mean, I just don't know. I mean, they're 8 games under 500 and playing in a playoff game. It just seems crazy to me.
Yeah, at a certain point, you kind of ask yourself, is it worth it too, right? Because if you make the playoffs, you don't get a lottery pick anymore. And I understand that that's kind of thinking about in a loser's mentality. And I'm sure that those guys are going to go out there and play as hard as they can. But I guess it's a win-win, right? You win a couple of games, you make the playoffs. You aren't able to win the games you need to win, and you get a lottery pick in a pretty deep draft class. So it's interesting to see how that goes. Orlando's a team who injuries struck them early in the year and really impacted their performance. I think everybody was expecting them to take a leap after as well as they played last year. But Paolo Banchero, another guy who will make a higher seed in the Eastern Conference, kind of give him a headache. He's hard to plan for, hard to scout for, him and Franz Wagner. So it's an interesting group of play-in tournament teams, not necessarily the most attractive group of play-in tournament teams given each of their flaws, but it should be entertaining basketball.
So in the West, of course, it's much stronger at the bottom here. And it does look like, to me, that any of these teams could move spots between now and Sunday. I mean, Denver is the 4. They have 48 wins. Minnesota's the 8. They have 47 wins. So when I look at this, at least I'm going to see some competitive basketball playing. And I haven't checked the schedule, by the way, to see who they're indeed playing this weekend. I'm guessing they're not all playing each other. And so that is the dynamic where you had basically the NBA is like, all right, we'll make these games meaningful, but I just don't know how meaningful they're going to be to the teams they're playing against.
We do get Clippers Warriors Sunday, so that'll be a good one to close the season with. And, all of these teams, again, there's a huge difference between finishing in that top 6 and not having the stress of in the play-in tournament. Something happens, guy sprains an ankle, twists a knee or whatever, and now you're facing elimination and not making the playoffs at all. These things happen, and we've seen them happen in the past. So I think there's going to be that sense of security that these teams are playing for to try and get in that top 6. And there's so much left to be decided. I mean, we saw the other day Harrison Barnes hits a turnaround game-winning three-pointer to beat the Warriors. And now the Warriors, things are up in the air for them again. So even if they're playing some of these teams, I think the lottery odds are pretty much locked in as well. So those lower teams who don't necessarily have anything to lose for anymore can go out and play freely and maybe play spoiler for some of these teams as well. So I have a close eye on those games as well. Some of these underdogs might try to keep things interesting and play spoiler late season.
Yeah, and Golden State, it does seem to me, has the best shot at making noise this weekend with a cupcake tonight. We'll get to that. So why is Denver 7-point favorites over Memphis tonight? Total is 241. I mean, I thought Memphis is pretty good as far as what I've been following here. I understand that Denver, got that little boost, it seemed like, from the new coaching staff that they have, but it feels like a lot of points to me here, no?
The only thing I'll say is it's a tough back-to-back for Memphis. They were in a hard-fought battle in Memphis last night, and to fly to Denver, one of the hardest places to go. I've never done it personally, but I hear that trip from the airport to where they stay downtown is really long, so you're getting in late. They'll probably be a little tired, and Denver is a team who maybe has some new life with a new interim head coach. So Memphis is up against it. I kind of understand why it's like that, but at the same time, Memphis has been playing good basketball. Ja Morant is playing well, so I expect a good game there.
All right, so I'm going to run through these games real quick, guys. So let's stay on our feet here. So all big favorites: Clippers at the Kings. Clippers -6.5. This is actually the shortest spread of the three games we're going to talk about. So we'll give Sacramento some chance to win. But then after that, I'm assuming that Golden State's going to win over Portland. Portland's in a position now to get a top pick. They're not going to blow that. And it doesn't appear that Houston's playing anybody tonight. There's no chance the Lakers would be 10-point favorites if that was the case. I mean, Houston's been a better team than LA.
Absolutely. I think Houston, they're resting guys. They're trying to get guys fresh. They're pretty much locked into that 2 seed. They are locked into the 2 seed in the Western Conference. The only thing left to play for. I like the Warriors, especially bouncing back from that tough loss to the Spurs the other day. And then the Clippers, they're playing well. The Kings are a team that's really, really hard to predict. You never know which Kings team is going to show up. Clippers have been more consistent, and Kawhi Leonard is rounding into playoff mode. I like LA.
All right, fair enough. Have a great weekend, Gilbert. We'll catch up again and preview the NBA's play-in games and the tournament next week. Thanks for coming on.
Can't wait.
All right, finally, it is here. NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs as well. We'll preview a couple of baseball games tonight with Danny Burke next.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and you know, launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know what Chris Sale can bring. I was personally high on Schwallenbach. Smith Shawver, their other starter, looks okay to kind of bad. They need to I don't want to say tread waters. I think that puts it in a bad light, but that's what they ultimately need to do. They need to tread water until Strider gets back, until Acuna gets back, and maybe it's just part of the team morale mentality that we're not at full strength. We need to kick things into gear once those guys get here.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
These guys are barreling everything right now that are hitting well. Pitching is usually ahead of hitting this time of year, but torpedo bats is what we're reading about, Tom, and I think it's hilarious.
Will the pitching be out in front, or are the bats actually this strong? So it's going to develop over the course of weeks. And again, if all teams have the ability to do so, be creative with it and get out there and use it.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, you know, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, you know, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the move between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. You know, things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. If the Masters golf tournament isn't your thing, I can't imagine why it wouldn't be, but hey, maybe not. Maybe you're into baseball tonight. And by the way, a couple of really good matchups. Let's bring in Danny Burke from Odd Shopper. He's got his eyes on a couple of games this evening. Danny, great to have you back here on NewsWire. And without further ado, let's jump into the late game tonight. Masters will be way over by then. Dodgers take on the Cubs. Hey, Cubs playing good baseball at the start of the season. Usually we have to wait for this to determine May or June how they're going to be, but they're actually been pretty formidable. Kyle Tucker's playing great. What a good deal it was for them. But it is LA. Dodgers are back home, minus 205 on the money line. Total is 8. Boyd pitches for the Cubs. Yamamoto pitches for the Dodgers. I got to tell you, Danny, a little strange to see. I know it is LA, but I mean, the Cubs have not been a slouch team in baseball this season. What do you make of tonight's matchup?
So I got to preface this to everybody out there who may not be familiar with me. I mean, I grew up a diehard Cubs fan. I am still obviously a huge Cubs fan, but I actually see this spot as kind of a fade opportunity for Chicago. Now, I completely understand the sentiment of people and kind of like you're alluding to going, man, it seems like there's a lot of chalk here. I mean, the Cubs offense has been hot. Boyd has looked good in his first 2 starts, but I think Boyd has overachieved up to this point. Now, his barrel rate has been kept low, same with his hard hit rate, but his swinging strike rate has also been low, which I want to see that get a little higher. And it's a completely different beast when you're going up against the Los Angeles Dodgers. We're all aware of this. Now, simultaneously, I mean, the Dodgers have been a little lackluster against Southpaws, but I don't think anybody's too concerned about that. They're going to be able to figure it out. But this is kind of the time to look to fade the Cubbies. I mean, right when they get you feeling good, that's typically when they implode against teams that are superior in comparison to them. Again, they have all the offensive assets to get you there. It's, can you really trust Boyd to give you about 5 to 6 almost flawless innings of ball, which you need against this prolific Dodgers team? And then more importantly, Craig, it's, can you trust this Cubs bullpen? And the answer is clearly no, based on the small sample size we have seen this year, and furthermore, what we've seen from the past couple of seasons. And I know they just made a move, but it's still, there's a lot of working pieces that need to be implemented and to come to fruition from this Cubs relief staff before I could trust them. So I laid the run in the hook there with the Dodgers at about plus 112. I mean, Yamamoto still clearly has some great stuff. Did very well against the Cubs the first go around. Not really worried about this Cubs offense, seeing him 2 times in a short span. I think the offense will take advantage of an overachieving Boyd. And again, I just don't really trust that Cubs bullpen quite yet. They're a good team right now, but they're not on the levels of great like the Dodgers are.
Sounds like a true Cubs fan to me, Danny. Good stuff there on that one. All right. Always looking at the other side. I got you. All right. Other marquee matchup tonight, and it's one that we don't see all that often in baseball because this interleague matchup, it has to be AL East versus NL West. We know that's like every other year, every 3 years, especially with the Yankees being back in the Bronx, taking on the Giants, who before you and I were around, used to play in New York at the Polo Grounds in the 50s. That goes way back. But so I assume a lot of Giants fans actually will be there tonight to watch the Yankees. And the odds are minus 126. It is Stroman against the very good Robbie Ray for San Francisco. And by the way, the Giants have been playing good baseball. Yankees seemingly at home, clobbering the ball. They were quieted, though, on the road. Total of 8.
Yeah, this is a really intriguing game, and certainly the weather may play a factor here, but I'm looking at this price with the Yankees at about minus $1.20, and it just seems like a really good bargain. Now, clearly, Marcus Stroman being on the bump is worrisome if you're back in the Yankees. His numbers have not been great, but traditionally he's performed better at the beginning of the year. Hasn't really been the case in his first 2 starts. Hopefully he can figure it out against an average offense thus far in the San Francisco Giants. Now, they've done enough to get off to this hot start. But you look at Robbie Ray and his underlying metrics. Again, it's very early, but his 3.18 ERA, we're not identifying that he's got a 7.47 expected ERA throughout these couple of starts, a 5.81 xFIP. And as you mentioned, Craig, I mean, the Yankees have just been destroying the ball at home and against lefties as of this moment. They're second in weighted runs created plus. So again, the weather may dictate some of this outcome, but I do like the cheap in price with the better offense in the Yankees and hoping Stroman can at least contain the Giants enough to let the Yankees lineup do the rest.
All right, fair enough. Danny, great stuff as always. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll keep an eye on those 2 games. Looking forward to catching up with you throughout the baseball season. Appreciate it.
Sounds good, Craig. Take care.
All right, Danny Burke with us here, breaking down some Major League Baseball here on the show, and naturally a lot of good matchups coming today and tonight, so make sure you stay on the grid, especially for Pharrell Coast to Coast, and then Gabe after the games with the very latest. But coming up next here on the show, we'll check in with our good buddy Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report. Much more news coming up on the prediction markets, including a report over on Legal Sports Report about the company under fire recently, Kalshi. So stay with us here on the grid. We'll tell you more after this.
okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and you know, launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know what Chris Sale can bring. I was personally high on Schwallenbach. Smith Shawver, their other starter, looks okay to kind of bad. They need to I don't want to say tread waters. I think that puts it in a bad light, but that's what they ultimately need to do. They need to tread water until Strider gets back, until Acuna gets back, and maybe it's just part of the team morale mentality that we're not at full strength. We need to kick things into gear once those guys get here.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
These guys are barreling everything right now that are hitting well. Pitching is usually ahead of hitting this time of year, but torpedo bats is what we're reading about, Tom, and I think it's hilarious.
Will the pitching be out in front, or are the bats actually this strong? So it's going to develop over the course of weeks. And again, if all teams have the ability to do so, be creative with it and get out there and use it.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the mood between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
In the first quarter of 2025, a lot of sports betting ramifications have been circled around what to make of these companies that are essentially running prediction markets. That seems to be a very hot topic of discussion. Let's bring in Sam McQuillan of Legal Sports Report, which certainly we've seen a lot of cease and desists, some companies winning, some companies losing. And the bottom line is we're just in a new world of sports betting with these prediction markets, companies finding different ways to offer possibilities of predicting the future. They don't call it sports betting, although it's very similar. And based on the numbers here that I'm reading from this article over at Legal Sports Report, specifically from this company Kalshi that's been very successful, I would assume, Sam, that they're going to continue to fight to operate because there's just too much money to go around.
Yeah, that's exactly been the case here, Craig. We're talking about these prediction market trading platforms like Kalshi, who has partnered with Robinhood, like Crypto.com, a bunch of other websites, which started doing this in January ahead of the Super Bowl, getting ready to offer markets on whether or not one team would win or lose a particular matchup. That kind of drew some scrutiny and ruffled some feathers, but they had a lot of success doing it then. And they rolled it over to March Madness and really haven't been stopped on any actual level that's going to enforce them. And what happened with March Madness and Kalshi, they took over $500 million on the men's and the women's tournament combined. So a ton of money. And instead of people actually just betting on the outcomes of things, users are buying and selling contracts on the outcome of the sporting event. So they're describing it as event trading, but for many states, to your point, Craig, that looks an awful lot like unlicensed sports betting. They're doing this basically in 50 states right now without any sports betting license, without any fees, without any consumer protections. So the money that they took on the tournament is actually about 16% of the entire amount of handle that the American Gaming Association estimated was going to be bet on March Madness. So it's a colossal amount. It's about 34 times the amount that they took on their next closest prediction market, which is cryptocurrency, and about 15 times more than they took on the Super Bowl. So it's been very fruitful for them on that front. Many sportsbooks have also come out and reported figures. Now, it might be a little bit different than the sheer volume Kalshi is taking, because in this case, sometimes you can have users buying in or buying out of a contract. So some of the money in there could be, I'm wagering on this team, but I want to buy out of that position. So that still counts towards the total handle, but it's still more than FanDuel, more than DraftKings took. And it would also be silly to pretend that a lot of this isn't coming from states that don't have legal sports betting options. There's still about 12 without any real sports betting options. Florida as well only has the one sports book, so I'd have to imagine a lot of volume comes from there. And unlike traditional sports books, where a lot of time the outcome is reliant on who wins a matchup, we certainly have talked about a streak of favorites winning not only in the NFL season, but with March Madness as well. With these prediction market platforms, they're basically pitting users against each other, functioning as an exchange. They make money off of the trading fees that happen as opposed to the actual outcome of an event. So it wouldn't be crazy to say that perhaps they could have weathered this very chalky March Madness tournament better than some of the sports books and even taking more money than some of them. So, going forward, it's going to be a really major issue. We're going to continue to talk about in terms of, these new platforms that have popped up. And we'll get into a little bit right here about what is happening on the regulatory and legal level beyond just the sheer popularity that we're seeing with these platforms.
Yeah, as we've talked about here on the show, for people unfamiliar, the state of Nevada does not want prediction markets in their state, and they don't want them in Las Vegas. They, certainly feel like they're skirting around some of the rules, regulatory advisories, and also, of course, tax money. So that's what they feel, but it doesn't feel like the state of Nevada is in agreement with that, because as of right now, it feels like these companies are still going to be able to operate.
Yeah, it's no surprise that Nevada took action against basically what they see as a new form of sports betting operating under a different name. They did it with fantasy sports. They even have been very resistant against online sports books, taking away from their in-person betting operation that really runs the city. But you now have 6 states, Maryland, Illinois, Ohio, Montana, Nevada, and New Jersey have all sent cease and desist letters to these platforms, asking them to stop operating, telling them that this is unlicensed sports betting. Kalshi and these prediction markets actually got their first win in what is expected to be a really long legal fight here. A federal judge in Nevada granted them what's called a preliminary injunction. So Kalshi, when they were told to stop offering these platforms, filed a lawsuit in Nevada. The judge said, we're going to allow Kalshi to continue doing this while the lawsuit plays out, which is really major news here for a state like Nevada, which pretty much thrives off of legal gambling. The judge came out here and said, because the CFTC, which Kalshi contends is the one who should be governing this, not the states, because the CFTC hasn't come out and said, yeah, we shouldn't be governing this. They've essentially been quiet on the issue. They're going to allow them to continue to proceed. It's worth noting that Kalshi got in a fight with the CFTC a few years ago about prediction markets on the election. They lost, the CFTC lost that fight, allowing Kalshi to persist and offer these markets. So the previous CFTC regime wasn't very kind to them, even though they ended up losing. The new CFTC regime has been much more favorable. One of Kalshi's key investors is the president's son. So that plays a factor in this as well. And the acting director has come out and said, we want to provide a framework for this to exist and to be regulated. We still haven't had much development in that actually happening. They have been saying they're going to have a roundtable where they're going to hear everyone talk about the issues and gather feedback, but that still hasn't happened. We don't know when that's going to happen. So it's kind of in this weird landscape right now where we're seeing now 6 states take action, Kalshi firing off with lawsuits, and then federal judges having to figure out whether or not they're going to allow them to proceed. But I would imagine, if this happens in Nevada, New Jersey, there's a lawsuit as well. If judges keep saying we're going to continue to allow them to proceed while these lawsuits play out, it's going to be great for Kalshi. It's going to be great for Robinhood to continue taking these wagers. And that will really maybe push the industry to take even more action and try to unite a coordinated push against what they see right now as kind of an infringement on their business, where they don't have to pay the same taxes, they don't have to pay the same fees. But it's going to be a very, very long legal fight, and definitely not the last we're talking about these prediction markets.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is our story of the year, and probably your story of the year over Legal Sports Report as we continue. All right, one story we can put to bed here is it looks like Oklahoma not going to be joining the sports betting market. And for those of you who didn't watch the shows all week long, what we do is we cover each state, usually day by day, to see if there's any updates. Earlier in the week, we told you that the promising news is coming out of Hawaii. On the flip side, we end the week with some not promising news coming from Oklahoma, Sam.
Yeah, hopes for sports betting Oklahoma are really fading fast with just a few weeks left in the current legislative session. Even the longtime supporters of sports betting legalization are kind of admitting that the clock has run out. Representative Ken Luttrell, who's been the champion of getting sports betting passed, especially in the House, these past few years. He told local media this week that the odds really are not great. He has 2 House bills which have stalled, and a separate bill in the Senate which has stalled as well, would give control to the Oklahoma City Thunder, who would then have to work with tribes. But the roadblock here seems to be the governor, Kevin Stitt. He's made it very clear that he's not in support of any of the current proposals. He and the state's tribal nations really do not get along. They have a terrible working relationship. And what these bills would basically mean is if they pass, then he would have to negotiate some sort of compact with the state's tribes to allow sports betting in some form under some framework. And because they really don't like him and he can't seem to get a good footing with them, it seems like it's really going to go nowhere. So these 2 bills that are still alive could move forward, but they would probably face his veto. And even a separate bill that wouldn't face his veto would take it to a public vote, but he would still be in charge of that public vote timing. So he pretty much has all the power in this case. And unless something drastically changes, which I don't see happening anytime soon with the tribes and Stitt, it's going to be a long time before Oklahoma really makes any progress on this issue, which is unfortunate because it seems like the state Senate is behind it, the people in the state are behind it, the tribes are very open to working with a proposal, but just the relationship with the governor seems to be irreparable at this point.
All right. Great stuff as always, Sam. We'll check it out at LegalSportsReport.com. Have a great weekend. We'll catch up again next week. Thanks again.
Thanks. You too, Craig.
All right. Sam McQuillan with us from Legal Sports Report. Justin Rose at the Masters. Another good day and another birdie. He's still the leader at Augusta, but who is on his tail? We'll tell you next. Geoff Fienberg. What an impressive debut it was for Mackenzie Gore of the Washington Nationals. He ended up having the most strikeouts of anybody thus far in a Major League Baseball game this season. Buy or sell, George? Mackenzie Gore will be a top 15 fantasy baseball pitcher this season. Top 15. Buy or sell?
You know, these questions are made up by Sam Yarnell, our producer, man behind the glass here. Who's a Washington Nationals fan here? You ever get the feeling that he just made this where you have to say buy, all right? Because top 15? Yeah, I think he'll be top 15. Come on, Sam, make it top 10. Make it a little bit more interesting. Maybe even top 5. Yeah, I think he's got the upside to be that. Once again, he is a good pitcher anyway. Once a top prospect here, you're pitching in a good pitcher's ballpark here. I think the upside is there for him to be much better than top 15. Top 5 may be pushing it, but I think he'll be inside the top 10. So yes, I am well on board the Mackenzie Gore train.
All right, yeah, I think that I am going to buy this too, man. I don't know. He's just, and again, it's not just that one start for me. I think I have the video somewhere. I was like literally sitting behind home plate for one of his starts in Palm Beach, and I was like, wow, like this guy's stuff looks really, really good. Yeah, I'm going to buy it too. I think he's a potential Cy Young Award candidate. As George said, you're dealing with bigger markets and bigger names with LA and some of the other teams. Arizona's got some great pitchers too. But I think he's definitely in the mix. And look, do I think he's a top 2 guy? No. Do I think he's a top 15 guy? Yes. I'll buy that. As his season, I think, is going to be a special one for him.
Fantasy Sports Today. Weekends starting at 8 a.m. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, day 2 of the Masters is underway. Let's see if we've learned anything as of, let's say, 11:45 Eastern Time. Geoff Fienberg from Odds Checker is keeping an eye, of course, on the Masters, and we're just so happy to have Geoff on the show here. Geoff, thanks for coming on NewsWire. Really appreciate it. And, here we are, day 2, Justin Rose, a birdie. He's still in the lead at the Masters. Good start for him.
Wonderful start for Justin Rose. I guess no real surprise. A guy who is playing in his 20th Masters. He's lost in playoff here before, a couple second places, I believe. It's always kind to players with great history here. Justin Rose getting out front, but on his tail, U.S. Open champion Bryson DeChambeau. So wouldn't that be impressive?
Yeah, DeChambeau, right now is the hot name. I believe he's 5 under, if I'm not mistaken, with Rose being 8 under. But, naturally we still have a lot of players to tee off. And so I want to kind of go through some of those with you here. Naturally, we have Colin Morikawa, who had an okay first day. I think that's fair to say. Okay. He's 33-1. Joaquin Niemann at 70-1. Jason Day, 50-1. Scotty's now, his odds have gone to 2-1 because he's going to be right in the mix. We know that. And then we have Justin Thomas and then Jordan Spieth as well. So, certainly, has your opinion changed on anybody from the time that we teed off yesterday to now?
I mean, I guess there's, my opinion's changed in that there's some guys that I wish I hadn't maybe discounted this week. But Colin Morikawa made that eagle on 13 yesterday, got it to 3 under par, and then came home, I believe, with, I think, bogeying 3 of his final 4 holes. Quite a setback for Colin in that group. Neiman as well got it to 3 under and then fell all the way back to even par. Playing with them was Minwoo Lee, who actually won the three ball there yesterday. I'm a big fan of Minwoo. I don't know if guys like Bryson and Scotty are going to come back to the pack, but if they do, that would be a player. I think 75-80-1 might be his live line. Could be a tough pill to swallow, though. He's just 1 under. He hasn't started his afternoon round, and not gonna be honest, Craig. I'm not like, my outright picks aren't going great, and I'm not really in the mood to reinvest. Not because I can't. I do that often, but the Masters is never really the tournament to bet a little, win a lot. Last week on the PGA Tour, Harman wins at 90. The week before, Minwoo won at like 40, 50. The week before, Hovland won at 70, 80. There's so many great chances week in, week out to bet a little, win a lot on the PGA Tour. I don't want to reinvest when Scotty looks good, and I just think it's going to stick with these guys at the top. That's what history pretty much always tells us here at the Masters.
Yeah, and the one player I want to ask you about, because it felt like late in the game, especially from prognosticators, a lot of people jumped on Jon Rahm right before things teed off yesterday. And my gosh, I saw that display there where he tried to break the club over his knee and, he drove one into the woods. I don't know if that was one of the guys that you were on, but I would tell you that from at least, following people on social media and people making picks, seems to me there's not a lot of optimism that all of a sudden he's going to turn it around today.
Yeah, I was one that was quite high on Rahm this week, but, acknowledging it had to come with a bit of a leap of faith, right? I mean, it's hard. I can respect when you win on LIV. There's enough good players there, even if it's a small group of really good ones. You beat them. I think that's worth something. It's still really hard for me to quantify what, 4th place on LIV is worth. What 5th, 6th place means, in a when the fields are what they are. And a lot of us were taking a leap of faith that John, almost like will be preparing differently for this than his standard LIV event. Despite those LIV statistics, the baseline tee to green, strokes gain stats all seem quite positive. But he is just not the same golfer. He took the money and just changed the game, changed the setup, changed a lot has changed there. And I'm one of those people that got a bit of egg on our face. Not to say I'd be sitting here with a Justin Rose ticket either, because he wasn't one I was looking to bet for the win as well. If I did have to make a move from guys who didn't tee off yet, I might go back to LIV and say Tyrrell Hatton at 30-1, only because he came into this event in not the greatest form. But if he is in form and the winds are picking up here, and it does truly become a bit harder test of golf over the weekend, he would be the type of guy that I would want to stay in the fight. I say that as someone who has bet Tyrrell Hatton at all the other majors this year, but didn't want him at the Masters. No, because he said he's been one of those guys to like verbally, say he doesn't like it here, which, Sergio had to come full circle on. But
Right.
nonetheless, as much as I say that, there's not really much I want to reinvest in on this outright board, truth be told.
Understood. Sergio, not a bad first day, by the way. So we'll keep an eye on him. Let me end with this. Oberg, who's had such a good start to his year, he's been such a hot name. He is playing really well. Also, Geoff, could you see that continuing as we move forward into Saturday and Sunday?
Yes, absolutely. As we do say that, though, Bryson has made another birdie and Oberg with a bogey. So, Bryson now just 2 back of John Rahm. But Ludwig, you mentioned the second place finish last year. I mean, just such a talent. And he is just getting that much more comfortable, like, in the fight. In moments that would have maybe, been, he was like a fish out of water in a year ago. He is now, that much more comfortable in him. He's going to win everything. If it starts on Sunday, that wouldn't, that makes total sense. But it's only a matter of a time with Ludwig.
Understood. Well, Geoff, Fred Couples, another name everybody is watching just to see if he sticks around this weekend. And I know that you and I will be watching the entire field this weekend as well. Appreciate you coming here on NewsWire. And good luck with all of your picks this weekend.
Thanks so much, guys. And hopefully we can just get a fun finish, because it's been about 5 or 6 years since there's been like an exciting end to the Masters tournament. So let's get one of those this weekend.
Agreed. Every other tournament, it feels like, has had those, except for this one. Thanks, Geoff. Talk soon. We'll be right back. What an impressive debut it was for Mackenzie Gore of the Washington Nationals. He ended up having the most strikeouts of anybody thus far in a Major League Baseball game this season. Buy or sell, George? Mackenzie Gore will be a top 15 fantasy baseball pitcher this season. Top 15. Buy or sell?
These questions are made up by Sam Yarnell, our producer, man behind the glass here. Who's a Washington Nationals fan here? You ever get the feeling that he just made this where you have to say bye, all right? Because top 15? Yeah, I think he'll be top 15. Come on, Sam, make it top 10. Make it a little bit more interesting. Maybe even top 5. Yeah, I think he's got the upside to be that. Once again, he is a good pitcher anyway. Once a top prospect here, you're pitching in a good pitcher's ballpark here. I think the upside is there for him to be much better than top 15. Top 5 may be pushing it, but I think he'll be inside the top 10. So yes, I am well on board the Mackenzie Gore train.
All right, yeah, I think that I am going to buy this too, man. I don't know. He's just, and again, it's not just that one start for me. I think I have the video somewhere. I was like literally sitting behind home plate for one of his starts in Palm Beach, and I was like, wow, like this guy's stuff looks really, really good. Yeah, I'm going to buy it too. I think he's a potential Cy Young Award candidate. As George said, you're dealing with bigger markets and bigger names with LA and some of the other teams. Arizona's got some great pitchers too. But I think he's definitely in the mix. And look, do I think he's a top 2 guy? No. Do I think he's a top 15 guy? Yes. I'll buy that. As his season, I think, is going to be a special one for him.
Fantasy Sports Today. Weekends starting at 8 a.m. Only on SportsGrid.
It's going to be a fun weekend of golf here on SportsGrid. Masters tournament going on, and then, of course, next week we are into the NHL and NBA playoffs, so it should be a fun month of April as we continue. But let's wrap up the show with some more Masters talk as we finish up with some last licks. It's sort of fascinating to me that 2 Hall of Famers that played on the same team in Seattle seem to be the biggest post-career baseball players that have turned to photography. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Randy Johnson is like a major photog now, going all over the country, doing baseball, basketball, football. And now it seems like Ken Griffey Jr. is doing the same thing. Over the last year, we've seen Griffey at different events, including Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game and the World Series. And now Ken Griffey Jr. shows up, and he is a official credentialed photographer at the Masters. So it's kind of funny here because Ken Griffey Jr., believe me when I tell you, does not need the money. So clearly is doing this for fun. And it's really cool to see the post-career of some of these guys doing this. Now, Griffey, of course, had kids playing at a high level in college football and followed them around for years. But now it just seems like boredom has taken over, and it's time to just check in and see how you do as a photog at Augusta. I'm not honestly really sure who he's working for or what he's doing. Maybe it's just for himself. But how do you say no to a credential for Ken Griffey Jr.? You simply don't. So we'll see where those photos end up. But got a credential. I guess that's a step. Okay, now here is one of the stories of the bazaar at the Masters at Augusta yesterday. Name that you may not have ever heard before. This could be the first time, and this is what he's going to be remembered for, unfortunately. Jose Luis Ballester, 21 years old, from Spain. He is a collegiate athlete playing at Arizona State, playing at the Masters as an amateur. And get this, had to take a bathroom break yesterday and ended up taking this at the 13th hole, and instead of using a restroom, used Ray's Creek. Yes, water instead of a porta potty. Here is Ballester.
What happened there? Well, I completely forgot that we had those restrooms on the left of the tee box.
Oh, okay.
13th tee. Yes, yeah, correct. And then I'm like, I really need to pee. Didn't really know where to go, and since JT had an issue around the green, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna sneak here in the river. Probably the people would not see me that much, and then they clap for me. Probably one of the clubs that I really got today, like real loud. So that was kind of funny.
Are you concerned that there might be any blowback from that at all? Or I mean, obviously they did see you, right?
Yeah, they saw me. They saw me. Yeah. I mean, it was not embarrassing at all for me. So if I had to do it again, I would do it again.
He said that he didn't think that people would see him. I mean, really? At the mat? I mean, you do anything in this world, there's a phone somewhere. He really thought nobody would catch him on camera, on video, on iPhone, Android, taking video of him taking a leak in the creek? Come on, man. Gotta know better than that. Man, I don't get it. I mean, and he said he would do it again. Just look at it. This is not like Phil Mickelson. This is an amateur at the Masters. Really strange one here. I mean, maybe nothing happens from this. And personally, I don't care. But a little awareness here. I mean, the guy is 21 years old, going to college. I don't know. All right, we'll end the week on a good note here. And Jesus Luzardo, who I got to know playing for the Marlins for many years, was traded in the offseason to the Philadelphia Phillies. He does a great event every year and puts on kids clinics, etc. And even taking it a step further, this is cool. Jesus Luzardo and the Jesus Luzardo Family Foundation announced yesterday they're donating $100 for every strikeout this season to the Boys and Girls Club of Philadelphia, his new home. Luzardo grew up in South Florida, now makes Philadelphia his home now that he's on the Phillies, and off to a great start, by the way, launching the Striking Out Barriers Initiative. Every strikeout, he says, now has a greater purpose. And by the way, he is currently tied for the Major League Baseball lead in strikeouts with 25 on the season. That'll do it for our show. Thanks again to Geoff Fienberg for coming on the show and talking some golf with us. Danny Burke, also from Odds Shopper. Gilbert McGregor, talking some basketball, of course, from Sporting News. Thanks to all of our guests for appearing all week long here on the show as well. Smiley's got you covered for Masters coverage coming up next. That's 1 minute away, followed by Pharrell Coast to Coast. Game time decisions, in-game live, game day. And then Gabe's got you covered for Sports Rage tonight, everything happening across the NBA, NHL, and at Augusta. So I'll be back with you tomorrow morning for some fantasy baseball talk, 8 a.m. Eastern, if you want to wake up and catch fantasy sports today. If not, my next show is Monday, right here on NewsWire. We'll tell you who wins the Masters. By the way, some bad weather could be coming to the Masters. Wonder if we're going to be talking Monday championship. We'll see. Thanks to Luke. Thanks to Frank. And keep it right here to Sports Grid. I'll see you back here Monday.